seatbelt. There might be some turbulence.
You've taken your chances, made your mistakes, and now a final triumph.
Indy! Give 'em hell, Indiana Jones!
Harrison Ford dons the hat and whip one last time. On this edition of Talking About the Movies, Indiana Jones takes the stage for the last time in James Mangold's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Welcome to another edition of Talking About the Movies, and today we're going to talk about, as always, the biggest new release of the weekend. And there's no bigger new release this weekend than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth and final installment of Harrison Ford's tenure as Indiana Jones. He was the man behind the series in the beginning, and this is, after over 40 years, this is the last time he plays the role here. And before we get into this, we might as well go ahead and talk about the other films in the series. And I've pretty much talked about these in past videos. I haven't now, to start with Raiders of the Lost Ark, nothing more really to say about Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's really one of the greatest action films ever made. Not much more needs to be said about that one. It's a classic on so many levels. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is my personal least favorite of the series. There's still moments in it where it is fun, but at the same time, there's just so many moments in there that really annoy me. Kate Capshaw and Kiyu Kwang's Short Round. The characters they play in that film really are very obnoxious to me. They get on my nerves so fast, and at least they're great actors, by the way. I mean, Short Round's now an Academy Award winner, but still, there's just so much about that movie that I cannot stand. It's still my least favorite of the series. And then you have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which I've already talked about in length. So if you want to go ahead and check out that in Time About the Movies episode I did, I'll go ahead and put a link to it in the corner, as well as my thoughts on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I will defend to this very day. I do not think it's as bad as everyone says it is. If you want to go check that out, go ahead and check out the link in the corner for that as well. So, yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about this new film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny takes place in 1969. It follows Indiana Jones and his estranged goddaughter, Helena Shaw, who are trying to locate this device that could change the course of history before this Nazi-turned-NASA scientist, Eugen Voller, can get it for himself and alter the outcome of World War II. And as you can tell, basically by the title, we're dealing with time travel in the Indiana Jones universe now. I mean, we dealt with aliens in the last one. Now we're jumping into time travel, which honestly, after Aliens, that's probably the most logical step you could take with this. And the reviews for this have been very lukewarm. It had a bad opening at the Cannes Film Festival. Like, Disney really misjudged what they thought would happen if they took this in Elemental to the Cannes Film Festival, and I think that's kind of what led to the movie's not doing so well at the box office, because this is not doing well at the box office right now, unfortunately. It's making about the same amount of money as The Flash did. It has a bigger budget than The Flash did, and it's probably really going to have a tough road ahead to try to make its money back, which is a shame, because despite The Flash, with everything that it had going on behind the scenes, this film did not really have that many problems controversially. You didn't hear anything about Harrison Ford grooming somebody, sexual harassment allegations against him or anything like that, but I think part of the reason why this movie probably doesn't play very well is because, well, there's a couple of things. One, maybe Disney, I think, overestimated things. I mean, this is to spend $300 million on this is just, I mean, it doesn't really feel necessary to do that. I mean, I get why they wanted to do this, to try to make a better conclusion to the series than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was, even though I didn't hate Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It did not perform well critically, and that's why that film did not, I think, continues to still get that bad word of mouth too, but that's part of the reason why I think this one's not doing so well. Plus, the whole concept of bringing in a new director, even though this is going to be the last film in the series, like, James Mangold is a fantastic director, but the idea of bringing him in to direct the finale and not having Spielberg come back one last time, I think plays a major part into why this film has so many things about it that just don't feel off. But with that said, though, I do not think that this movie is as bad as everyone's making it out to be. I don't think it's as much of a failure as people are making it out to be. It's weird. Like, this year in particular, I've come to the realization that film criticism has devolved a lot in 2023, and we're not really talking about the movies themselves. We're talking about what's going on behind the scenes. We're trying to add agendas to this. Like, there's one review that I saw for this, and I could not believe that this was actually real. It was from an NBC News Twitter post, and let me see if I can find it here, just so I can show you what it is. Yeah, you see right here, this is from NBC News Think, and the guy looks like he's got an agenda going against him or something like that, but unfortunately, the latest Indiana Jones installment continues in Hollywood tradition of punching Nazis without doing much to explain why Nazis are bad or how you recognize them. If you really need an explanation of why Nazis are bad, then quite frankly, I don't know what to do with you, what to say to you. But and it keeps going. I see right here another really bad take here. Like, listen, it's too bad that decades of anti-Nazi films have seemingly done so little to inoculate the U.S. polity against fascism behind maybe a meme or two. And again, it's just like, really, we're really having this conversation here. Like, do we really need to tell people why Nazis are bad? I mean, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense why we're doing this. And on top of that, you have people that as soon as those bad reviews came out of the Cannes Film Festival, they were already declaring this a bad film. Like, there was no reason to go see this movie whatsoever. They were already set to say it's a bad movie. We're not even going to judge it by anything else but these bad reviews. Because now apparently we give a crap about what Rotten Tomatoes thinks and what people think. And there was also review bombing too. Plus, it's Disney and Lucasfilm and George Lucas, his company Lucasfilm. Kathleen Kennedy also is involved here as well. Of course, they all want to go after them and all that, but they don't actually want to see the damn film first and make their own assumptions for themselves here. And yeah, it's stuff like that that's just like, it just baffles me that we're still doing this now. Like, we're really still doing this, and we're not just letting the movie try to entertain us. Like, try to entertain is let me see the film first before I make my judgments on them. Like, I can make my own is like, if I had some thoughts to say beforehand, then yeah, I would say them first and then go see the film. I'm at least going to at least give the film a benefit of a doubt. Even if I didn't like The Flash and I didn't like the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, I still did my best to try to go in there with reasonable expectations. Let the film prove me wrong, and Sally didn't prove me wrong on that film, and I think a lot of people were proven wrong on this. Will be proven wrong on this film, because really, this is still a really good film. Now, it's not a great film. It definitely has a lot of notable flaws to it that we will indeed get into, but when you look at the movie as a whole, it's still a good, fun summer blockbuster adventure film. Like, people criticized it because it was too much of a nostalgic trip back, and what's wrong with going back to the past? I mean, honestly, what's seriously wrong with that? I mean, if you're tired of Indiana Jones, okay, maybe I can understand what you're talking about here, but some people out there were just ready to just rip this apart before the film even came out, before it even had a chance to prove to anybody it was any good. And I'm not going to be the one to do that. I'm going to do my best to try to tell you my thoughts coming out of this film, and adding it up to the thoughts that I had going before the film, the things I was really looking forward to here. And I think for the most part, it did indeed meet a lot of my expectations, but there are things about the film that I can indeed talk about that were not good. So I might as well go ahead and talk about the negatives, because there are some negatives here. And I'm not going to lie, I thought a lot of the new characters they added in here were not that memorable. I mean, none of them really felt like they needed to be here. Like, you have Antonio Banderas showing up in here, playing one of Indy's friends from the past, and I thought he was alright, but he really didn't add anything to the film, honestly, except for just a thing for them to get to where they needed to get this thing that they needed to find the other half of the device. The cronies that the bad guy has are just stock baddies. I mean, you have this big guy, you have this really tall dude played by Oliver Richters, who really could have been so much more into this film, but he really doesn't do a whole lot here. Like, he really does not do a whole lot here, and the way he gets killed off in this film is just like, really? This big guy's gonna get taken out by that? I mean, it's just like, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me to have that in there. And then they have a character from the U.S. government, from the CIA and FBI. I think she said she was from CIA, who really doesn't serve a purpose in here as well either. She's only in there for like maybe 15, 20 minutes total, and then they just kill her off, and then nobody ever remembers who she is, and like, she's never mentioned ever again, and that leads to something else I'll bring in a little bit later on. But she's not a bad actress in here. Shawnette Renee Wilson is very good in the film. Unfortunately, there's just not really a whole lot for her to do here in this film, honestly. Like, they don't really give her much to do for a subplot that eventually gets pushed off to the side. And again, I'll delve into that a little bit later on. Probably the one person that I thought was absolutely pointless in this film was the kid, Helena's sidekick in Tangler, Teddy Kumar, who I didn't even remember his name while I was watching the movie. I had to wait for the credits to see, what the hell is this kid's name? I was really looking just to make sure I knew what it was. And that's how much he was so unimportant to the storyline here. I mean, he was absolutely pointless. He was just there to be a new Short Round. And yeah, Short Round was annoying in Temple of Doom, but he's a kid. Like, he's a small kid, and I've seen that kid in other movies. And that guy, Kiyu Kwan, like I said before, he's won an Academy Award. He's proven that he's a really good actor, but it took him a long time for him to get to that point. But I mean, the guy here is this guy, Ethan Isidore, isn't terrible, but his storyline really didn't add a whole lot to the film, honestly. It just didn't really feel like he needed to be there, honestly. If it was just an adventure with Indiana Jones and Helena, that really could have worked out better. I think that really could have worked out better. I just felt like he was thrown in there at the last minute for no reason. The new characters I did like Mads Mikkelsen playing the villain. I thought he was a ton of fun to watch in here. It's Mads Mikkelsen. The guy's a really damn good actor, and I like the additions of Toby Jones as Basil Shaw and his daughter, Helena Shaw, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I thought they did a very good job here. Even though Helena's motivations aren't really well-defined here, they didn't really do a good job of giving her story that much. It's given her a good story and a good reason to... It's like they couldn't really figure out what kind of direction they wanted to take with her. They didn't know they wanted to make her a bad guy in her own, a bad girl in her own rights, like the antagonist, or an anti-hero, or what. It didn't really seem like they had a really good idea of what they wanted to do here. I did like the idea of having Indiana Jones and her goddaughter working together here. Like, she's the main female character in here instead of another love interest for Indiana Jones, which they do have one here, but once again, we'll delve into that once we get to the positives here. One of the other things I really didn't like as well is that kind of towards the end of the film, it does start to kind of drag. Like, before we get to the big climax, it really felt is when they got inside the cave to find the other half of the dial. This should have been the most exciting moment of the movie. We're going to see something similar to what we saw in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and the Last Crusade to find this last piece of the puzzle. And I'm not going to lie, I did get bored by it. Like, I did get bored because I really didn't feel like not a whole lot was really going on at that point that was new or different. It was just mostly the same stuff we've done before, and you know the bad guys are going to follow immediately afterward. Like, you know, we've seen this done so many other times, not just in Indiana Jones movies. The last Hey Arnold movie did the exact same thing. Like, here's an idea. Why don't you find a way to make sure that the bad guys don't get to you after you give them a pathway? I mean, why not do that? I mean, like, you could find a way to get that to get past that point. Also, count how many. Also, take a drink every time somebody gets placed in the back of a van in this movie. You'll be drunk by the time this movie ends, because there are so many scenes in this movie where somebody gets kidnapped by the bad guys, taken to the back of a van. It happens not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times in this movie. Like, come on. Like, it's just, it gets ridiculous. Like, I can understand, like, that part I can understand that people get kind of bored by that part of the film. That I can understand. Like, I did see it too. I didn't really want to see it, but unfortunately, even I couldn't take it. It's just like, just find this other dial and get to the climax already. Like, it's like, I got what everybody was talking about with that. Like, I did get that. But those are most of my negatives towards the film. Let me just go ahead and talk about what I really liked about the film, because there is a lot that I really liked. Of course, you got to start off with the title character, Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford once again plays him, and you know, even though he's an older man, he's still a really damn good actor. Like, he still gives it his all here. You can tell that they don't want to get him involved in the same kind of stunts they did back in the old days, because he is getting older. They don't want to punch him as much as he does, except for the one point where he has to. And yeah, I get that, but at the same time, I thought he did a very good job in here. There's moments in here where he is still very effective, and there are moments where they do take a break to explain what's been going on in Indiana Jones's life, and I thought they did a very good job with that. I think the story element of that segment right there that we'll delve into a little bit. I think that they did a very good job of that. But once again, I'll delve into that as we go along. Like I said, most of the cast in here was okay. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Toby Jones, I thought they were very good in here. And even the people that Mads Mikkelsen, I also thought was great. It was great to see Sala again, John Rhys-Davies, and some of the other characters they bring back from the other Indiana Jones films. And the visuals overall are very well done. Like, the CG overall actually works pretty well here. There's an opening scene in the film, which I think is great. I think it's one of the stronger elements of the film. The first 20, 30 minutes of the film where Indiana Jones, it's in 1944, and they have to de-age Harrison Ford. And I thought they did a very good job of doing that. Like, I thought that it was a really good-looking CG effect. I didn't see any flaws to it in terms of the speaking or trying to do something that was outside the ordinary for him. I thought it worked very well for what they were trying to go for here. It reminded me of what they did with Michael Douglas in the beginning of Ant-Man or Robert Downey Jr. in the beginning of Civil War. I thought they did a very good job with that. And that sequence, like I said in the beginning, is very good. It's a very well-done sequence. I thought the opening sequence was very good. The action sequence in the middle of the film where they're riding the rickshaws through Tangier, and I thought it was very well done. I thought they did a very good job of handling that, and it looks very practical too. Like, you could tell, not a lot of CG was being used in that particular segment, and I think they did a very good job of handling that. And it was a fun action sequence overall. Like, the film overall really has some really good action sequences and a very good use of the CG and the visual effects. I didn't really feel like they overdid it, except for the beginning when you have Indiana Jones being chased by the CIA agent and Vollier's men. You could definitely tell they used a lot of CG in there, and it is kind of distracting a little bit, but it's not the worst thing ever. Like, I thought it was it was a nice-looking scene, though, but at the same time, you could definitely tell there is a lot of CG overload in there, but I thought it was fine for what it is. I know a lot of people will have their problems with it, but for me personally, I didn't really have too much of a problem with it. John Williams' music is very good as well. I thought James Mangold did a very good job of giving this his own kind of his own look, while also trying to mimic what Steven Spielberg had brought to the other films. You could definitely tell that there's a mix of both him and Spielberg in this. And James Mangold usually is a very good director. He hardly ever makes a really bad film, and this is definitely one where it's not a bad film whatsoever. And I think he did a very good job with this. I really would have liked him to get more creative control on this let's see what he could do when he has full control on this film and not having Spielberg, not having the feeling that he has to be just like Steven Spielberg, because we see that with several directors many times, and most times it works, but then when it doesn't work, it really doesn't work. So, let's talk about the third act of the film, because that's the hotly contested topic right now with this film. And we are going to get into spoiler territory, so if you don't want anything spoiled for this, I'll go ahead and put the thing right here so you can stop right now. And I'll put a timestamp to the end of the review so you don't have to listen to the spoiler part of the film. But with that said, let's talk about the spoilers for the climax of the film. So, basically what happens is that Indiana Jones has been captured by Voller. He gets inside the plane with Voller and his assistants. They're going to go back in time to 1939 to kill Adolf Hitler in the hopes that a better leader will rise and lead Germany to victory in the war. Basically, Mads Mikkelsen wants to put himself in there. So they're getting ready to go up there, and Helena sneaks on board the plane. That's another thing that I really didn't like, that Teddy somehow is able to fly a plane up there. Like, they never really explain how he's able to do it, and that's one of those things that's just like, that stretches a little bit of the believability in this to another level. And then, but here's the thing that happens: Indiana Jones realizes that they fail to consider continental drift, and because of this, the time fissure leads them to 214 BC. So instead of going to the 1930s, they're going all the way back to 214 BC during the Siege of Syracuse. So Jones and Helena get off the plane, the bad guy dies, and Jones wants to stay in this time period because throughout the course of the film, you see that Indiana Jones has completely fallen off. Like, he's a recluse, he doesn't like loud noises, he just got divorced from Marion. His son, Mutt Williams, is mentioned here, but there's a part in the movie where he talks about him dying during the Vietnam War. He's about to retire. There's not really much more left for him to do. So in this case, he wants to stay during this time period, but Helena's just telling him, you can't do that because it's going to cause a massive time paradox. And so Archimedes comes in to investigate the crash, and Archimedes, of course, has been the main focus of the film. That's his dial, and he returns the version of the dial that's already been brought from 1969 and a watch taken from his body. And Indy, realizing that the dial was made for the sole purpose of bringing help from the future, and as a result, all time fissures lead to this siege. And so Indiana Jones is still trying to convince Helena to just let him stay there because he has nothing left. And that's the point where Helena just basically says, screw this, and just punches him. You get the sound effect and everything. He gets knocked out, it cuts to black, and he basically is returned to 1969, never really explaining why. I guess they took the plane that Teddy was using, and you almost think that the movie's going to start back up again, because it starts in the exact same way that it does when we first get to 1969. You see the window in Times Square, in New York City. I don't think it's Times Square, but you see the clock that's right next to it. But then slowly but surely, you see that Indiana Jones is in his bed. And at first, I don't know why, but at first I thought they went back. It's because he went back in time. It created a new change in the timeline where maybe Mutt Williams didn't die, and maybe Marion didn't divorce him, and that's why I thought they were going. But slowly but almost immediately, I kind of realized that they didn't go that route. And so what happens is that Jones confronts Helena and basically asks her, "Why did you bring me back here? I have nothing to live for here." And then Marion comes in. Karen Allen comes in, and I'm not gonna lie, when Karen Allen showed up again as Marion Ravenwood, I got a little emotional. I almost got teary-eyed. I mean, it was cool to see her back there again, and that really felt earned. That felt like an earned moment. Like, the emotional moment in there felt earned. It didn't feel like it was being manipulative whatsoever. It felt like a scene that truly deserved to be there. Like, I got more emotion out of that than the ending of The Flash. And I liked the ending of The Flash. That was one of the few things I really liked about that film. But this one I liked much better because I felt like they earned it here. And I do like that it doesn't really set the tone up. It doesn't really set itself almost immediately that they're going to get back together again. They have to slowly talk about what they've been doing since then and what is happening, and just like, and the slow build up to them eventually coming together again. It's a really nice scene, and it does end on a nice little note here. Note where you see Indiana Jones's hat up in the getting dried off from the clothesline that's there, and it ends with Jones taking the hat off, and then the movie ends. And I think that was a way to them to wrap it up, but I really don't think they're going to set up for any kind of sequel for that, because really, you don't really need to do anything else with this character, honestly. I think we've done more than enough with him, but I did like the way it ended. I think the first 30 minutes of the film and the final 30 minutes are really a ton of fun and make the movie more than worth watching. The stuff in the middle is mostly very good. There's that moment maybe about 20-30 minutes before we get to the final climax where it does start to peter off a little bit, but it did win me back by the third act. I know a lot of people are going to be very conflicted by that, honestly, but at the same time, I thought it worked very well here. I thought they did a very good job on that front. It was a really good moment, and it made my enjoyment for the film overall worth it. So overall, my thoughts on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny: I think it's really fun. I think a lot of people that really are bad-mouthing this movie really are just doing it because it's the fun thing to do for trolls and other people to do. Like, if you want to say that these last two films have been completely unnecessary, I totally agree with you. I think they should have ended it with The Last Crusade. Like, that was the last great thing to come out of the Indiana Jones series. It was the greatest thing they ever did with that series. But unlike something like the Fast and Furious movies, where the Fast and Furious movie should have ended with Furious 7, but instead they keep going with it, and they keep getting worse and worse with every film, these movies have been very good. They have been very entertaining. They have been a lot of fun. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a good, fun film. This is a good, fun film, too. I'd say with this film in particular, there's more to say that's not great about the film, but I still liked it. I still really enjoyed the film. I still had a really good time with it. It's not a great film overall. There's a lot of things that are worth mentioning that are not great, that I've mentioned in this particular episode. But I think it is a very solid film. It's still a good, fun summer adventure film, and I think it still makes the Indiana Jones franchise overall worth it. There's 5 really solid films in there. Even the lesser films are still very good and very entertaining. There's still a lot to like in these movies, and honestly, I don't know if I really want to see them do more with Indiana Jones unless you're going to do like a spin-off with Shia LaBeouf as Mutt Williams, which I think could be something that could be interesting to do, or even do a prequel series to Indiana Jones, something like on the lines of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. But I guess they said that this is the last film in the franchise, which, I mean, I can see why. I mean, put the focus on the Star Wars series, but again, if this is the last film of the series, then why did you go to all the trouble to hire James Mangold to step in instead of having Steven Spielberg come back one last time to work on it? Why not have George Lucas come back on and do it? Like, those are things that really need to be talked about why Steven Spielberg couldn't come back to do this last film, and why they brought James Mangold in to just do this last film, and then that's it. So I don't know what's going on that front here, but we're probably going to learn a lot more of this as the fallout for this is going to come. The sad part is I really don't think this is going to hold up very well at the box office. I think this is going to be the film that people are never going to shut up about the fact that this bombed, and I'm probably never going to hear the end of it because of what I said about The Flash, which I still stand by what I said about The Flash. But I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like, it's not going to be fun for me for the next couple of months and over the whole year for this. Like, this is probably going to end up on some people's worst of the year list. It won't end up on my worst of the year list, but it won't end up on my best of list. I still enjoyed the film. I thought it was a very good, fun film. I think as time will go on, I think this will have a better following than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which should have a better following. It is not as bad as people make it out to be, nor is this movie. This is still a very good, fun adventure film. It has a lot of flaws. It's not a great film overall, but it still is a ton of fun. I do recommend it, going on the fact that if you go in there, you'll have a good time with it. If you have a good time with it, just don't go in there expecting a classic Indiana Jones film. Like, it does enough there where I would definitely recommend it. I give this a very good thumbs up. I think it is a very solid film. It definitely is not the best of the series, but honestly, if I had to rank the Indiana Jones films overall, now that I have some time to think about it, I'd probably put Last Crusade's number 1, Raiders is number 2. I would probably still put Kingdom of the Crystal Skull at 3, Dial of Destiny at 4, just barely. It kind of goes back and forth with me, and then Temple of Doom would be the least of the series. But like I said, all 5 films still have a lot of entertainment value that I think is well worth it. Like, there's a lot of movies out there where they have really terrible movies that really ruin the overall ebb and flow of the series as a whole. The fact that this has 5 solidly entertaining films out of it, I'll gladly take it. Like, I wasn't expecting this to be a cinematic masterpiece by any means. I just wanted to have a good, fun last adventure with Indiana Jones, with Harrison Ford in there, and I think they delivered just that. I think it's a very solid, entertaining film. I'd say definitely check it out. It's well worth seeing on a big screen. So, yeah, so that's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now we're going to introduce a new segment here. Now that we're in a brand new month, I'm going to start doing this thing, this monthly recap of the movies that I've talked about on this show, like in different past episodes, and I'll put links to the specific videos that they're attached to, just so you can get a good idea of some of of what I thought of some of the films that came out in the last month. So without further ado, let's get to it. I gave a thumbs up to Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I think is the best movie of the year so far, and will probably be the best movie of 2023. It's just an amazing film, animation-wise, story-wise. The fact that this is the beginning of a 2-part adventure, it doesn't really have a whole lot story-wise, but in terms of the action, but at the same time, it gives you so much enjoyment from the animation, the storytelling, the character development, the backstories of these characters. Fantastically well-made film. Highly recommend it. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. It's going to be tough for this movie to not be the number 1 film of 2023 when the year is done. Transformers Rise of the Beast, I gave it a good thumbs up. I would say that it's not a great film overall, but it was a nice return to form for the Transformers films. This is the first real film in the series, besides Bumblebee, that I enjoyed since the first Transformers film. I think that Stephen Caple Jr. does a very good job of bringing the series back to form here. I like what they're developing, the ideas that they're setting up here. I'm really excited to see if they ever get to do this Transformers G.I. Joe crossover film they've been talking about. It's a ton of fun. Anthony Ramos is great in the film. It's great to see Peter Cullen once again as Optimus Prime. Really love the film. Recommend it. Big thumbs up for Disney Pixar's Elemental, which I'm glad to see people are coming around to. Did not do well in the first weekend, but is slowly but surely finding legs. And it is a really solidly entertaining film. It's another great film in the Pixar Slice of Life series of films they've been doing with Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red. This is another great movie that is really well done. The characters are great. have great voice actors to them. The animation overall is very solid. It's a really solid story, like something out of romantic comedy a little bit. It's a very entertaining film. I highly recommend it. Big thumbs up for me on that one. Needless to say, I give a major thumbs down to The Flash. This is my personal pick for the worst movie of 2023. Just the stuff behind the scenes, the fact that Warner Brothers was trying so hard to save this film that was clearly unsavable, and the film just ends up being one of the most detestable and most disgusting things I've seen on the screen in a long time. The CG effects are terrible in the film. Yeah, it has some good moments in there, but there's still 90% of a film that's just a mess on so many levels. I really did not like this film. I hate this movie. I don't need to delve into this anymore. There's tons of videos already on this channel, unfortunately, more than I would have wanted to do, but that's what you can go ahead and check those out if you want to see why I really did not like The Flash. I did like No Hard Feelings, though. Jennifer Lawrence returning in her first major leading role in a wide release since Red Sparrow in 2018, and she elevates this pretty formulaic sex comedy to something really enjoyable. I thought she had good chemistry with Andrew Barth-Feldman, who I thought was great in the film. It does a very good job of taking stories that were previously used in two really terrible movies, Private Lessons and I'll Be Home for Christmas, and actually makes not only a funny film, but a heartwarmingly entertaining film. A film that really doesn't have to do a whole lot overall. I wish the comedy was a little bit better, but overall, I think the chemistry and the storyline between the two leads works very well. I definitely recommend checking this out. It's a really fun film, directed by the guy who did Good Boys, Gene Stupnitsky. And finally, thumbs up on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's not the best Indiana Jones film, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. It's a serviceable conclusion to a great series of films. Really, this could have ended with The Last Crusade, but Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and this film are really enjoyable films regardless. They have their flaws to it, but I still found more than enough there to really recommend it. You go into it with the right note, you have a really good time with it. It's definitely worth it. Big thumbs up from me on Dial of Destiny. And so with that said, that wraps up this edition of Talking About the Movies. Next week is actually a free week. I don't really have to do any new reviews. I don't really have an interest in seeing the new Insidious film, nor do I have an interest in seeing Joyride. So the next time I head to the theater, it'll be for Mission Impossible in 2 weeks. But next week, I'm actually working on this side project while I'm also doing this right now. It's the making of a Talking About the Movies episode. I'm going to show you the process I go through from getting my tickets for the film, seeing the film, telling you how I go into a film, looking at these movies, and then showing you how I put the review together. So that's going to be a special episode that's going to be coming up on next week in the place of a movie review. So be sure to check that out next week. But thank you guys for watching, and if you want to tell me your thoughts down below, let me know what you thought about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Do you agree with me that the bad word of mouth it's getting is totally unnecessary, or do you really think it is as bad as people make it out to be? I want to know your thoughts down below. Keep the conversation going, and if you want to see more videos like this, go ahead and check out the playlist that I have here. Subscribe to our channel, subscribe to our new channel, the Reviewing Network Live, coming up. We got our preview episode for that coming up on August 6th, so be on the lookout for that. And hit the like and subscribe button if you really like these videos. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys next time, and until then, take care.